the headlines. President Park Geun-hye calls on North Korea to come to the negotiating table once again in a New Year's press conference. World leaders joined some 3.7 million people in France for an anti-terrorism rally, days after Islamic extremists put the country under violence and fear, leaving 17 people dead. Now, the Korea Exchange opens its first carbon emission market on this Monday, joining the government's efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions to 30% below the usual levels over the next 5 years. Welcome to the program. You're watching Primetime News, coming to you live from Seoul. I am Kang Tae-ri.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. We begin with the main takeaways from President Park Geun-hye's New Year's press conference, where she highlighted her plans for her third year in office.
From inter-Korean ties to the economy and a reshuffling of her administration, our presidential office correspondent Choi Yoo-sun takes us through some of the key points in the president's remarks.
Addressing the nation on Monday, President Park pledged to lay the groundwork for peaceful unification on the Korean peninsula, as this year marks the 70th anniversary of the division of the two Koreas with their liberation from Japanese colonial rule. As a means to improve inter-Korean ties, President Park expressed her hope for holding reunions for families separated by the Korean War around the time of the Lunar New Year holiday next month. The president then said she's open to talks with her North Korean counterpart as long as it would help the two Koreas peacefully unite.
그 비핵화 같은 거 이거가 전혀 해결이 안 되는데 이게 전제 조건은 아니지만 이것이 해결이 전혀 안 되는데 평화 통일을 얘기할 수가 없거든요.
President Park spent a large portion of her time talking about her economic innovation plan, saying this year will offer Korea a final chance to leap forward. She then told the nation she was sorry for the confusion that followed documents leaked from her office and vowed to ensure such acts are not repeated. Stressing how the prosecution has found no proof of her aides intervening in state affairs, the president said she has no plans to immediately replace any of them. As for her chief of staff, she said now is not the time to let him go.
이제 지금 여러 가지로 그 당면한 현안들이 많이 있어서 그 문제들을 좀 이렇게 수습을 먼저 해야 되지 않겠느냐. 그래서 그 일들이 끝나고 나서 또 결정할 문제라고 그렇게 생각을 합니다.
It's clear what President Park's main goal is for this year, revitalizing the economy. But her firm position about her aides' alleged abuse of power and determination not to replace them anytime soon may deter parliamentary cooperation to secure legislative approval of the economy-related bills. Choi Yoo-sun, Arirang News.
The word that was most repeated in the president's speech today was economy. That could reflect just how much the Park Geun-hye administration is focused on reviving and strengthening Korea's economic fundamentals. Lee Ji-yoon has more.
노동시장 개혁은 선택이 아니라 필수적인 생존 전략입니다.
Carrying out reforms in various economic sectors is President Park's #1 priority this year. And those reforms are part of her 3-year economic innovation plan, which she says will help keep Korea's low economic growth from falling into a long, drawn-out slump.
내수와 수출 이런 게 다 균형이 잡혀서 온기가 돌게 하냐 하는 그런 여러 가지 정책들을 올해 아주 모든 힘을 다해서 부지런히 실시를 하게 되면 우리가 지금 3.8%로 정부는 성장을 할 수 있다고 보는데 우리가 할 수 있다고 생각을 합니다.
In order to see such economic growth, the president said related entities such as trade unions and management must work together. As for the possibility of a cut in the nation's key interest rate, she plans to consult with macroeconomic policymakers to make a timely decision when needed. Easing regulations aimed at boosting the economy is also on the president's to-do list.
올해 2단계 규제 개혁을 성공적으로 추진하고 나면 기업과 외국인 투자자들은 더욱 자유롭게 투자할 수 있게 되고.
And she believes that will lead to creating more jobs and eventually reviving the economy. But whether these measures will prop up the economy in the end remains to be seen. Some skeptics point out that the president's policies lack provisions to really help those with heavy financial burdens. Lee Jun, Arirang News.
Korea's National Assembly gave green lights to nearly 100 pending bills on this Monday, including a long-awaited compensation bill for the victims of the 2014 ferry disaster. Park Ji-won tells us more.
The National Assembly has finally passed a special compensation bill for the victims and bereaved families of last April's Sewol ferry disaster. It was passed on this Monday by a vote of 171 in favor to 3 against with 7 abstentions. The bill calls for a committee formed under the Prime Minister's office to decide on the terms of compensation. In addition, a trauma center will be set up in Ansan, the hometown of the high school students most affected by the tragedy, to provide them with psychiatric and mental health services. The Assembly also passed legislation aimed at promoting Korea's cruise industry, including allowing onboard casinos and developing port facilities for leisure vessels. A resolution to launch a parliamentary investigation into overseas energy development projects by previous administrations was also adopted. Lawmakers, however, delayed action on 2 key items originally on today's agenda. The so-called Kim Myung-lan Act, a comprehensive anti-corruption bill aimed at punishing public officials for bribery, was tabled until next month's extraordinary session after lawmakers from both political camps agreed it needed further review. Also delayed was the selection of special inspectors in charge of rooting out corruption among presidential aides. Bipartisan bickering kept lawmakers from selecting the candidates who now will be chosen next month. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea and Japan have agreed on how much they can fish from each other's exclusive seas over the next year and a half. After a 6-month halt, fishing will resume next week. Through June this year, the quota will be based on an average over the past 3 years. And the new agreement, effective starting in July for a year, keeps both countries' fishing quotas at 860 ships and 60,000 tons. As for the most contentious part of the agreement, Japan will be allowed to test operation of a 199-ton fishing boat over the next 5 years, while South Korea can catch an additional 50 tons of cutlass fish from Japanese waters.
The Korea Exchange opened its first carbon emission market on this Monday, joining the Korean government's efforts to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The Korean government is hoping to cut it to 30% below the usual levels over the next 5 years. Kim Ji-yeon tells us more.
A carbon emissions trading market opened at the headquarters of the Korea Exchange in Busan on Monday. More than 500 business entities are participating in the market to buy and sell leftover emissions credits, much like a stock exchange. Around 1,200 tons of emissions credits were bought and sold during the first day of trading. The price for 15 Korea allowance units rose nearly 10% to around 8,600 Korean won, or roughly $8 US. 1 KAU is equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide gas.
It will require continuous preparation and interest from business entities. Additional emissions quotas could be necessary if they're building additional plants.
The government allocated nearly 1.6 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions to around 500 participating companies. This round of emissions credits expires in 2017. Companies releasing more than 1 ton of chemical substances are required by law to participate in the emissions trading market. Among the participating companies are some of the country's biggest conglomerates, including Samsung Steel Industries and Hanwha Fine Chemical Corporation.
Korea is the 7th biggest carbon emitter in the world, releasing nearly 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Kim Jeon, Arirang News.
Korea's labor minister has vowed to push ahead with sweeping reforms to the labor market. The government is particularly focused on preventing companies from exploiting temporary workers as cheap sources of labor. Kim Min-ji has the details.
The government is poised to radically overhaul the labor market. In an interview with Seoul-based Yonhap News Agency, Lee Ki-kwon, the Minister of Employment and Labor, said that labor, management, and government need to reach an agreement on how to reform the labor market by March. This as major labor-related laws will change this year. The push comes on the back of a high youth unemployment rate and a high proportion of temporary workers. The minister said advanced countries are modifying labor rules in response to the changing environment. But Korea still maintains laws and regulations drawn up when it was seeking rapid industrialization. While it is important to achieve a goal of 70% employment from around 65% now, the minister said firms should not hire temporary workers just for the sake of boosting the rate, nor should they exploit workers for cheap labor. He said reforms should be aimed at reducing the gap between workers in regards to wage and working conditions without cutting the number of jobs. He also called for a flexible wage and working hour system for workers approaching retirement, adding that a reward system should be based on performance and not seniority. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
At least 2 workers have died and 4 others were injured following a nitrogen leak at an LG display factory in Paju, north of Seoul. The leak was first detected just before 1 p.m. on Monday during a routine checkup. It's believed the valve of a nitrogen gas cylinder was opened by mistake when workers were doing repair on the 9th floor of the building. Firefighters and police are taking measures to prevent further damage as they investigate the cause of the accident.
On this week's Industry Insight, we take a look at a local e-commerce startup that has become one of the country's leading online retailers.
It's called Coupang, and its innovative strategies and breakneck growth have attracted investors from home and abroad. Connie Lee has more.
It's a click here and a click there. And whether it's a box of diapers, a bag of coconut flakes, or a new winter coat, you can get the item delivered right to your door before the end of the day.
안녕하세요. 쿠팡에서 왔습니다.
It's all done through Coupang, which promotes itself as the country's leading e-commerce company. The 4-year-old company has grown quickly. In January 2011, it recorded 1 million subscribers and around $270 million in transactions that year. But today, there's around 25 million subscribers, with last year's transactions projected to be about $1.8 billion. Most shoppers use its mobile app, which was the #1 shopping app last year, beating out competitors like We Make Price and Ticket Monster. Coupang started out as a daily deal site by Harvard grad Bum Kim, but is now a full-fledged e-commerce company with more than 2,000 employees who enjoy an open office space in Seoul that looks like it belongs in Silicon Valley. The Korean startup has attracted U.S. investors and most recently raised $300 million from a group led by BlackRock. Investors point to Coupang's same-day service model, mobile expertise, and online offerings as the features that make the company one to watch. Coupang says it knows how to lure in the customers, especially to its mobile app.
You may think the secret is simply behind the design and layout, but in fact, there's a lot of technology and research that goes into this. We were able to keep up with that.
The company also says there's nothing like its end-to-end customer service, which involves using its own delivery personnel, including the Coupang Man. The Coupang Man does not fly, but his services are compared to that through the company's so-called rocket delivery. This may be the key to getting repeat customers.
It went from buying just necessities and grew into just buying basically everything.
I met with one avid user.
So a lot of times I'm not home when they're delivering something, but they always send me a message. They even take a photo, and then they send me the text message, this is where we left it. So I'm almost 100% sure I'm going to be getting the item that I received, which actually hasn't been the case when I've used other services.
Coupang has even given new life to businesses that have partnered with it. This online shopping mall, which specializes in trendy, feminine pieces, has seen its annual sales increase 20-fold after partnering with Coupang to sell its items.
The marketing and promotion of my brand through Coupang was incredible. Led me to sell 10,000 items in a day. I've now expanded my business and created another brand.
As for Coupang's future, Willis says it wants to solidify its position as a top online retailer here in Korea and expand its delivery service before branching out to the world.
We hope that one of these days, people will look back and ask themselves, how do we ever live without Coupang?
Connie Lee, Arirang News.
Indonesia confirms the recovery of one of the black box recorders from the AirAsia passenger jet that crashed more than 2 weeks ago.
With more, we turn to Paul Yee at the News Center. Paul, this of course is a welcome development for many, but it looks like they're still missing a vital piece of this black box.
That's correct. Indonesia's search and rescue agency said that Navy divers were able to retrieve the flight data recorder on this Monday off the coast of Borneo. However, the cockpit voice recorder remains under the sea. Officials say they have pinpointed the location of that voice recorder based on its underwater pings and plan to recover it as soon as possible. The recovered flight data box landed in Jakarta later in the day to be analyzed over the next few weeks.
The flight data recorder will be placed in a special case containing seawater. It will be brought to Pangkalamban to be cleaned it up and replaced with fresh water. Then we will bring it to the National Transportation Safety Committee laboratory in Jakarta for a further investigation process.
Families of the fallen passengers and crew continue to wait in Surabaya for the results of that examination. Meanwhile, international forensics experts have been working around the clock to identify the remains of the AirAsia victims. Only 48 bodies out of the total 162 people on board have been found. Among them, 32 have been identified, including a couple from Korea traveling with their 11-month-old daughter. And turning to Paris, a massive unity rally has taken place in the French capital to honor the 17 victims of last week's terror attacks. This as France remains at its highest state of alert. Our Son Jung-in has more.
French officials have described it as the largest march in the country's history. An unprecedented number of people, estimated to be more than 1.5 million, took part in a unity march in Paris, holding Je suis Charlie or I am Charlie signs. The rally, led by relatives of the victims, began on Sunday afternoon at the Place de la République.
And I think that we all have to fight for the values of our democracy, of the Republic, and that's why I think it's really important to be here today.
The march was held in response to the cold-blooded killings that began last Wednesday in the French capital when two brothers, Said and Sharif Kouachi, raided the offices of the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. It ended on Friday with the brothers and another gunman, Amity Coulibaly, being shot dead by police, but only after more people had lost their lives. In total, 17 innocent people were killed during the 3 days of violence. Thousands of police and soldiers were deployed to maintain security and protect those taking part, including more than 40 world leaders. French President François Hollande joined the rally, linking arms with leaders from Germany, Italy, Turkey, Britain, as well as Israel and the Palestinian territories in act of solidarity. The rally was held as more details of the terror attacks emerged. A video of Amity Coulibaly appeared on the internet on Sunday, in which he pledged allegiance to the group that calls itself Islamic State. In the 7-minute clip, he said the attacks were meant to cause fear across France and were in retaliation for foreign forces targeting IS militants in Iraq and Syria. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
And shifting to Africa, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has condemned the recent wave of violence sweeping Nigeria, where reports of some 2,000 civilians killed in Borno State by Islamic militants. His statement released Sunday follows a deadly suicide attack by 2 female bombers in the northeastern town of Pokistum that left 4 people dead. A day earlier, a suicide bomber believed to be a 9-year-old girl killed at least 19 people at a busy market in Maiduguri. No group has claimed responsibility so far, but the Islamist group Boko Haram is suspected to have orchestrated the attacks. And finally, turning to Los Angeles, Hollywood's biggest stars hit the red carpet at the Golden Globes, the first major award show of the year for the U.S. film industry. Among the big winners include the coming-of-age story Boyhood, which took home 3 Globes, including the coveted honor for Best Drama. But Sunday night's unexpected winner was director Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel for Best Comedy or Musical. The outcome of the 72nd Golden Globes is not expected to influence the Academy Awards, which will be held next month, but critics say it could give some clues on who's been tipped for the Oscars. And that wraps up our look at international stories for now. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome. I'm Stephen Che with a look at sports. Kicking off with the Asian Cup as Japan beat Palestine 4-0 and Iraq beat Jordan 1-0 to round out the first group stage matches. And with Group A back in action Tuesday, let's take a closer look at the South Korea-Kuwait matchup. South Korea aims to maximize their scoring opportunities, according to manager Uli Stilica, who cited their lack of a finishing touch against Oman, and the win sends them to the knockout round. For that to happen, Lee Chung-yong and Kim Chang-soo, who are battling leg injuries, and Son Heung-min with flu-like symptoms, need to be fit on match day. For now, they are game-to-game time decisions. Kuwait, on the other hand, looks to be aggressive on offense after losing to Australia in the Cup opener. Now, kickoff is at 4 p.m. Korea time on Tuesday, with Australia taking on Oman at 6 p.m. Moving on, the Ballon d'Or is set to be handed out. So who will it be? Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, or Manuel Neuer? As for Ronaldo and Messi, not much separated them in stats. Ronaldo scored 52 goals and Messi 49. But Ronaldo gets the leg up for a Champions League crown with Real Madrid, while Messi's Barcelona went without a trophy in 2014. Meanwhile, Neuer is the best goalkeeper on the planet and held Bayern Munich to multiple titles and Germany to the World Cup victory last year. Now, the winner will be unveiled in a ceremony in Zurich that starts at 2:30 a.m. Korea time. Coming closer to home, Hyundai ENC's Yang Hyo-jin and LIG's Kim Yo-han were the top vote getters for the All-Star game taking place in about 2 weeks. And speaking of Kim, his LIG Graders faced off against the KEPCO Vicstorm on Monday. And LIG gets started first before KEPCO answers back. The Vicstorm charged through the next 3 sets to close it out and jump to 4th on the standings. Over to the U.S. for the NFL. The field is now down to 4 teams who are set to battle it out for a chance to play in American football's ultimate game, the Super Bowl. Now, the Indianapolis Colts face the top-seeded New England Patriots in the AFC Conference Championships, while the Green Bay Packers take on defending champions, the Seattle Seahawks, for the NFC title. The games take place this coming Sunday, with the winners meeting in the Super Bowl in Arizona on February 1st. That's all I have for now. Stay tuned for the weather up next. Have a good night.
Hello, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with the latest weather updates. It was a moderate winter day, nice for outdoor activities, and we are under clear skies nationwide due to a high pressure front from China. It seems like most regions are done with brisk cool conditions for a while. Numbers will jump above seasonal averages from tomorrow afternoon, but parts of the Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces will remain under a strong chill through tomorrow morning. Other than that, conditions remain very dry over on the eastern coastline, so make sure to stay hydrated. hydrated. On to Tuesday's readings. Seoul starts off the day at -6 before reaching 5 in the afternoon. Daegu and Gwangju 9, Busan hits 11. On to other regions. Daejeon hits 6, Jeju hits 11, Dokdo 8, Mount Kumgang dips to 0. That's all I have for you now, but more updates coming up after midnight. See you then.
That's primetime news for this Monday. I'm Sean Lim. We've enjoyed having you with us.
And I'm Kang Chiri. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.